The most common phrase that you'll hear from atheists is, "I don't believe in God, I believe in science." Now, this notion that science disproves God and that science and God are in opposition is totally wrong. And it's actually very easily understandable if you just looked a little bit below the surface. What's up, guys? Welcome back to another video on my channel where I am in a constant search for truth, but some people already claim to know the truth. Science can explain everything in the universe. Therefore, God is not necessary to believe in because we already have science to explain the universe. We don't need God. But there's a couple problems with this way of thinking. And I'm going to start with one of the ones that not a lot of people know, which is, number one, science was created by Christians. Modern science, as we know it today, was created by the early church in medieval times. And there was one guy who kind of came up with this whole idea of modernizing science, and his name was St. Thomas. He is described as being the most influential thinker of the medieval period. Here was St. Thomas's whole idea. His idea was, if I want to study God as effectively as possible, I must first study God's creation. And that's exactly what he did. St. Thomas started thinking about things like math and astronomy, science, and everything that God created. And from this one man's idea of studying what God created, which is now science, the study of the natural world, everyone else started doing it as well. And this was called medieval scholasticism. This is when everyone in the medieval era started actually thinking about things, and it was for the purposes of trying to get closer and to study and know God better. And of course, they were Christians, so they wanted to help people. And this is actually the creation of the modern hospital. In the medieval era, all of these early church members started the modern hospital. If you've ever wondered why so many hospitals have saint in the name, this is why. St. Jude, St. Joseph, St. David, etc. It's because of these early saints who created the modern hospital. And as well as them just thinking about math and astronomy, science, and everything like that for themselves, they wanted to share it with other people. And this was the invention of the modern day university. Yes, Christians invented the university, and the most famous ones too. Harvard, Dartmouth, Yale, Oxford, Princeton. Those are all invented by Christians. Science was actually created to try to learn about God better. A lot of people think that science was created in order to try to argue God, like, oh, well, you guys say God created everything, well, I'm going to figure out how everything actually got created, but that's just not true at all. Now, there's another problem with this whole science term that people bring up, because what does science actually mean? Science usually gets thrown around as a very vague term by a lot of atheists to just go, oh, well, you claim God did this. Well, no, it's disproven by science. But what does science actually mean? Well, this leads me to my second point, which is number 2. Science is the study of the natural world. By definition, science is the study of the natural world, meaning that science can only be used to explain everything that happens inside of the universe, but not outside of the universe. It is literally impossible for science to prove and disprove things that are outside of the universe and or intangible, meaning and including God. Another example of something that science cannot prove nor disprove is opinions. While we can scientifically prove that when someone likes something, there's chemicals in their brain that make them have a happy feeling towards something that they like, but science cannot prove or explain why some people like country music and other people do not like country music. Your opinion is something called an intangible value, meaning it cannot be quantified and it cannot be measured. And it's the exact same thing for God. God is an intangible value. He exists outside and beyond the natural universe, meaning that he cannot be quantified and he cannot be measured. Science, by definition, cannot prove nor disprove the existence of God, because science is the study of the natural world, and God is not natural. He's supernatural. He's outside of the natural world, so science cannot disprove God at all. Now, I know that kind of answers the main point of this video, but I do have one more thing that I want you guys to learn, and I think this is very, very important. And it is my third point, which is Science and God are not in opposition to each other. I started this video with one of the most common statements that you'll hear atheists say. I don't believe in God, I believe in science. It seems like there's this idea that you either have to be pro-science or pro-God, and you have to be on one team or the other. And this is just straight up incorrect. Like I said, science cannot prove nor disprove the existence of God. Science is only there to try to explain God's creation, as St. Thomas put it. If you can't tell, I am a Christian, and I hope by the end of this video you guys are a Christian also, but that's besides the point. The point is that even if you are Christian, you do not have to be either Team Science or Team God. They both can exist together, and they're not in opposition at all. As a Christian, I believe in God, I believe in science, but I believe in real science. Science is based on the reproducibility of an experiment. That is basically what the entirety of science is based on, the reproducibility of an experiment. For example, gravity. Gravity is a perfect example of real science. No matter how many times you throw a ball up in the air, it's always going to come back down. It's perfectly reproducible every single time. Gravity is 100% real, and it is 100% explained by real science. Now, an example of fake science would be evolution. Now, stay with me here. Evolution on a small level absolutely exists, and I'll give you a perfect example. For example, dogs. Some dogs that are in colder climates, like huskies and stuff like that, have water-resistant coats to get the water off them from the snow and stuff like that, and they have double coats to keep themselves warm during the winter time because that's where they're from. And on the other hand, you have other dogs who have evolved to have very thin coats and non-double coats to try to keep themselves cool because they may live in Mexico, for example, where it's very hot all the time, and those dogs don't want to have a thick coat, so they evolve to have a less thick coat and a single coat to where they keep themselves cool instead of warm. That is an example of real evolution, and that is an example that you can see literally every day. Now, what is fake evolution is that dogs evolved from a weasel. This is what I've been taught that I should believe, according to science, that the earliest known common ancestor of the modern day dog is something called a myosis. A myosis was basically an ancient weasel. Now, there is literally zero evidence that this ancient weasel animal somehow evolved and is now a pug. There's no evidence at all. That is a perfect example of not real science. In the industry, they like to call that a theory. I like to call it make-believe. There is no evidence that a weasel evolves into a dog. There's no evidence that a fish evolves into a lizard. There is no evidence that a monkey evolves into a human. These are examples of made-up theories in order to try to disprove God. Science has been used to try to disprove God, but science, real science, is not in opposition to God at all. If you just use a little bit of common sense, you can obviously tell the difference between real science and fake science. For example, the evolution theory that humans evolved from apes and stuff like that. Use your common sense, guys. That's obviously not true at all. There's no evidence. It makes no sense. There is no evidence, yet they are making these claims as if they're true. 100% true. This is what happened, with no evidence. It's just, it doesn't make any sense to me. The overall point is, you do not have to be pro-science or pro-God. You can be both, because real science and the real living God exist together in perfect harmony. They coexist. They're not in opposition. They're not against each other. One does not disprove the other. They actually both kind of prove each other. Science cannot disprove God, but science can prove things that God has created. Anyways, the main point, does science disprove God? No, science absolutely does not disprove God at all. And you do not have to believe in God and not believe in science. You can absolutely believe in science. Just make sure that the next time you hear the next scientific theory, that you run it through your common sense filter to figure out if it is real science or not. But anyways, that's about it for today's video. I hope you guys enjoyed. If you did, leave a comment down below telling me that you enjoyed the video. And if you have any more questions about God, leave those in the comments down below as well, and I'll try to answer them in a future video if I can. But that's about it for today's video. Hope you guys enjoyed. Like I said, smash the like button, whatever you guys want to do, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace.